In this video, I'll talk about 10 of my favorite things to do in Singapore if you're visiting here on a VTL. This is a continuation of last week's video where I talked about briefly about the opening of the VTL between the Philippines and Singapore. Alright, so before I begin, a quick introduction. I'm George Putong and I'm a Filipino-American media professional who's been based in Singapore for the past 10 years. I do this weekly video called Saturday Uncut to practice my ad-libbing and to build my confidence in front of the camera. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to my channel as well as following me on social media. I'll leave the links in the description below. Wow. Alright, so now that there's a VTL opening, more and more VTLs, vaccinated travel lane, by the way, that's what it means, between Singapore and other countries, the Philippines included, I thought of, I put last week's video on my blog, backpacker.com, and I listed 10 things that you can do in Singapore for those visiting. It's intended for people who are revisiting Singapore, people who have not been here in over 2 years. So I'll talk briefly about some of the things that have opened up or brand new for people who want to consider, revisiting the country. Alright, so the first thing I would recommend doing is going to Jewel Changi Airport. So this opened already before the pandemic, but it's definitely something to see. It's one of my personally, it's one of my favorite places to see if you're in the country. You can either do this when you arrive in Singapore, since it's right there in front of you, or you could do this on your last day, and probably if your flight is at 6 p.m., why don't you go to the airport, Jewel Changi Airport, and at like 12 p.m. have lunch there, enjoy the world's largest indoor waterfall, which is the HSBC Vortex. A lot of things that you can do at the airport at Jewel, like there's a lot of eateries, and also here's a secret, if you're pretty flexible with your living arrangements, your where you book your hotels, why don't you book a staycation? It's not called a staycation if you're visiting Singapore. Why don't you book a night at Yotel Air, which is at Jewel Changi, because while the place can get crowded during the day, at nighttime it's magical when it feels like you have the whole place to yourself. So I would recommend Jewel Changi Airport. That is the first. The second thing to do if you are in Singapore, my recommendation is to visit the new Funan shopping center. Now, Funan is known to be where you can get your tech gadgets. It's different from Sim Lim Square, which is in Bugis. Funan now is also home to Wild Rice, the theater. So Wild Rice is a popular theater company in Singapore. So they open like a headquarters or their theater. They put it on the top floor if you want to catch some of their plays, some of their things. Also, there's a lot of eateries as well, and the location of Funan Shopping Mall is right there in the Civic District. So it's near the National Gallery. It's near Chimes. If you're in the area looking at the Merlion, you can definitely just walk over. Yeah, it's a very central location, so I would definitely recommend going to the Funan Shopping Center. Third, I would recommend, if you're in Singapore, the third thing I would recommend is supporting our local hawker centers here. So, like all the economies in the world has been affected by this. Singapore, no less than your hawker centers, your hawker stalls have been affected. Lau Pa Sat renovated a portion of it has been renovated again, and it's air conditioned. Definitely Maxwell Food Center, which is in Chinatown. You can get some chicken rice there. I'd recommend going there and getting your local food there. What's my favorite? My favorite is the water chestnut as a drink, lime juice, chicken rice. There's a lot of stuff you can get at Maxwell, and there's a new MRT station that's gonna open right next to it in a few months. The fourth I would recommend is trying the new cycling routes in the city. So these could include, you could rent, if you're in Singapore, you could just go to East Coast Park and pick up you could just rent a bike at a place called Go Cycling, I think. It's you could rent it there, and then you can drop the bike off at another part in the city. Like you could ride from East Coast Park, you can ride further east towards Tanah Merah, going past Changi Bay, which I'll talk about later, and you can drop off the bike at the Changi Beach location. So you pick up a bike and you can drop it off elsewhere. You can also rent bikes, those ones that like similar to OFO, the old OFO, or the, what do you call it? Yeah, Pwede rin yun. You can also rent those. The fifth thing I would recommend is visiting a place called Changi Bay. Let's see if I could drop a picture of it quickly. Yeah, so it's Changi Bay's always been there. It's near where they do the exhibitions for the air shows, which are every 2 years, and they just recently opened the park connector. There's actually a park connector, the eastern route. There's gonna be a completely around the island route that they're opening. Actually, you could do it if you're a cyclist, often on the road, but they're also building one that is like park connectors, and a recent one just opened in Changi Bay. It's beautiful there. It's very windy. You could do plane spotting as well, since it's in the east. You could see the airplanes landing in Changi. Yeah, definitely something I would recommend. What's my number 6? Because this is all my blog. I wrote about it. Number 6 is Jurong Bird Park. I would recommend going to Jurong Bird Park, and you're probably asking why. What's gonna happen? Because if you're revisiting Singapore, Jurong Bird Park is about to be relocated to closer to where the Singapore Zoo and the River Safari are. Because they're all part of the Mandai Wildlife Group, something like that. They're building a mega park, and they have one more attraction, just forgot the name. But pinag-merge nila lahat ng mga attractions in this one mega park. And if you're in Singapore, and if you know Singapore, I've been here for 10 years. A lot of stuff here changes quickly over time. A lot of here, the city's fast changing, and these old places are gonna be gone soon. So Jurong Bird Park in its original location, it won't be there any longer than maybe next year, I think, or is it this year they're relocating? So definitely put that on your list if you're in the country. Number 7, one of my favorite places in Singapore is the Botanic Gardens. So during this pandemic, they opened an entire extension of the park called the Gallop Extension, and in this extension they have like black and whites. Is that what you call it? It's like these colonial structures. It's a beautiful park, and yeah, so it's always been on my bucket list to go jogging there. So I think it's 8 hectares is what they opened. So definitely I would put the Gallop extension of Botanic Gardens on your list if you're revisiting Singapore very soon. Excuse me, I'm having my soft drinks. I need a soft drink, I need a break. This entire video, by the way, has to be uncut. That's the challenge. Number 8 is something for Filipinos. No, wait. It's not just for Filipinos. It's for anyone who enjoys Filipino food. Why would you go to Singapore to enjoy Filipino food? But it's on my list because I guess it's something that you can do. I mean, there's a bias to Filipinos who are visiting. It's to go to Timbre Plus. Timbre Plus is like a collection of eateries, not just Filipino food, but they have like halal, non-halal. They have Middle Eastern food, Japanese. There's also, for people who like drink, there's also this beer garden setup where you could just go in and pick so many beers from the refrigerators and enjoy it with your grilled meat, which you can get at Esquina Cebu. That's the name of this Filipino stall. And why do I mention it is because Timbre Plus, which is at One North in the west side of Singapore, just a few months ago they opened one in the east at Expo, which is near the Changi Point. So I know a lot of Filipinos a lot of visitors who are going to Singapore probably want to do their shopping, especially the outlet shopping. So if you're gonna do your outlet shopping at Expo at Changi Point, you can, after a long day, you can just cross over to the other side of the MRT, look for Timbre Plus East Side, and enjoy some sisig or some Cebu style lechon, which is really delicious. It's grilled meat. I think not just people visiting on VTL, but people who are already here would definitely love to do that. Number 9 is to do some cafe hopping. This is something that I haven't really been able to do because during this whole pandemic, I normally like to stay at home, or I'm very picky with the places that I go to, admittingly. But I was on a staycation recently. I was at Boat Quay, and I found a cafe called Punch, which is in Clarke Quay near Hong Lim Park, and I realized that there are a lot of cafes in the city to be explored. I feel like, I've been and yeah, I think that's my objective this 2022 is to visit more and more cafes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. This my chair is very noisy. They have your Telok Air cafes you could find at Telok Air, Chinatown, Bugis, Arab Street, Lavender, Clarke. There's a lot of places you can name to find something cafe that suits you. All right, and number 10 is a funny one, but it's to visit Paya Lebar Quarter. So to when this pandemic started, or right before this pandemic, I know it was just the construction is almost done. So if you're asking me, Paya Lebar is in the city fringe. So if you're coming from the airport on your way to the city, you're definitely gonna pass by this place. And it used to be a very sleepy interchange MRT station between the green line, sorry, the east-west line, the green one, and the circle line or the yellow one. So, and I used to live in that neighborhood. So to my surprise, it's the construction that is all complete now. It's a mixed development. They have malls. They have there's just so much to see in that area, I feel. So definitely take that. That was an interesting place that just sort of like became more lively or open, or it's something new to explore if you're revisiting Singapore. All right. Which leads me to my 11th one, my bonus thing. The Thomson East Coast Line, which is a new MRT line in Singapore. It's color brown. On the maps. It just opened during this pandemic. So definitely people who have not been in Singapore in over 2 years, this is going to be new. I haven't even been on it yet. So currently the phase 1 and phase 2, you can go from Caldecott MRT, which is on the Circle Line, and that'll take you all the way up to Woodlands. And you're probably asking like, why would I go to Singapore and do an MRT line, visit one? This is the reason, because these MRT lines will take you to certain parts of Singapore that were not easily accessible before. So there are new neighborhoods to be explored, new eateries to try, cafes even. I think there's a stretch there in Upper Thomson that I'd love to explore. Yeah, so those are some of the new things that you could consider. All right, so those are the 11 things that I would recommend to those visiting Singapore on a VTL, or revisiting Singapore if you haven't been here in a few years. Now that the country is opening up, definitely support the local hawkers when you're in town and local businesses. And for anything VTL requirements, I'll leave a link in the description below so you could follow instructions, because I'm not going to provide them for you because they could change. They could quickly change. All right, we reached the end of my video. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet, and also hitting the like button if you enjoyed this video. All right, this is week 35. My name is George, and I hope to see you soon here in Singapore. All right,